You'd be okay, right? Good time for the cut. Permanent.
Yeah.
Okay, I'd like to call special meeting council to order Monday, October 5th, 2020. Approval of the agenda, please. Councilor Majinski.
At the Monday, October 5th, 2020, special council meeting agenda be adopted as presented.
Seconder, Councilor Norbury. All in favor? Opposed? Carried. Thank you. No minutes or proclamations or delegations. Moving on to 7.1 bylaws. Permissive Tax Exemption Bylaws number 698/2020. A report from the Director of Finance dated October 5th, 2020, requesting council adoption of the Permissive Tax Exemptions Bylaw 698/2020. Recommendation, please. Councilor Howe.
Can I just ask for clarification here? So I'm a member of the Tumbler Ridge Old Timers Hockey Association, which is on the Permissive Tax Exemption Bylaw, and I just want to make sure that I'm not in a conflict of interest with that particular thing.
Thompson.
I will actually ask Ms. Torville to answer that because I'm fairly new. I will have her answer that.
That's a good question.
And the problem being is there's 3 people up here that, well, not necessarily, but there could be people on every one of these things that would have no quorum if everybody stepped down, so.
If I may, this comes forward every year, and there hasn't been any issues since over that time, so I can't see there being an issue at this point. We've done the 3 readings and we're just up for adoption, so it's just a formality at this point.
Yeah. Okay. Good question, though, Councilor. Councilor Norbury, recommendation.
And the District of Tumbler Ridge Permissive Tax Exemption Bylaw number 698/2020 is adopted.
Seconder, Councilor Majinski. Discussion. All in favor? Opposed? Carried. Thank you. New business. 8.1 Flatbed Creek Erosion. A report by the Director of Operations and Infrastructure dated October 5th, 2020. Requesting council approval of authorization of funds for the preliminary design and permitting of the Flatbed Creek Stabilization Project as the required steps to apply for funding through Emergency Management BC. Recommendation, please. Councilor Lehman.
The council authorized funds for preliminary designs and permitting of the Flatbed Creek Stabilization Project as the required steps to apply for funding through Emergency Management BC.
Seconder, Councilor Howe. Discussion. Councilor Norbury.
I'll start by saying I support the recommendation. It's, the erosion down there is, through the report we're seeing, it's potentially risking damage to our aquifer, as well as, this is likely going to be, may happen again in the future with the overflow of ice and water. We need to protect it.
Comments, Councilor Howe.
Yeah, I think it's pretty clear to see the riprap that was put in there to protect the pump house in 2011. It did exactly what it was designed to do, and this is a no-brainer for me. Absolutely, let's get this done and try and save that park.
Yeah, I agree. Any other comments? Okay, all in favor? Opposed? Carried. Thank you. 8.2 DAYCARE SPACES Funding. A report from the Interim Director of Community Services and Facilities dated October 5th, 2020, requesting council support on a second intake of applications for funding from the BC government to support new childcare spaces. Before we get to the recommendation, I just want to express My concern with this file, the more I look into this report, the more I see there's holes missing. And I'm really not confident with the costing of this project. So I'd really like to, I'd like to make a motion to defer this, to give our new CAO an opportunity to look over this report and really dive into the costing. In my opinion, 4,200 square feet for $4 million is, comes with gold-plated toilet seats. So, motion to defer. Second, please. Councillor Howe, comments or discussions? Councillor Kirkcalco.
My problem I have with deferring, and it also talks about it later on about us being able to match, or not match funds, but have funds available if the grant's not enough. I think that the first submission was for 3.9 million, because it was $1 million from the other side of it. So to me, reading through that, that tells me that once this comes back, and we're gonna go forward, that we could be looking at $1 million of taxpayers' money to build this, if it stays at the current amount.
With this costing, that's correct. But I am definitely questioning the consistency in the report and the costing of this. And I think it needs another look. Councillor Norbert.
So with the deferment, the idea being is that we would relook at the application and make changes to it. And if we didn't, the submission today would be the old grant request, but with.
Yeah, so for example, we don't have a number of spaces that we are creating with this. The grant to the province is for creating new daycare spaces. So in our application, we can't specifically tell them how many spaces we're going to create. I think that looks negatively upon our application. As well as the cost per space. The province is really looking for a certain amount of cost per space, and if we can't tell them that number, it's not going to look good. So we've already gone through this once and has been denied, and I'm definitely committed to creating more childcare spaces, but I want to do it right, and I want to make sure that our report is complete with all the information that the province is looking for. So at this point, I don't think it is.
One thing to think about is that the application is due November 1st, so we have a little over 3 weeks to get an application in. Does the staff feel confident they can submit an application within that time?
I'll ask staff about that. Mrs. Thompson.
In speaking with my senior staff, we do believe that we can have something ready for the October 19th meeting that will feel a little more confident providing to council with the costs and number of spaces created to make sure that our application is strong.
More comments or questions? Councillor Howe?
That's funny because I had the exact same email I sent to Ms. Thompson today asking her about how many spaces do we have in the community center now and how many is this going to create. My thought was, if the government's paying for it all, fantastic, but if we've got to pay $1 million so we can get 10 more spaces, then we're looking at $100,000 per space. Over 10 years, you're looking at 10 grand per kid over 10 years. And that's just for our contribution. Now, if the government was to give us that money, that's something different. But I think we need to give our new CAO an opportunity to have a look at this for herself and see if there's merit in this thing at all. At the end of the day, we own this building, we still got to do the maintenance costs on it as well, right? So $1 million might go a long way in actually expanding the daycare that we have. Although that came off the table a long time ago, now we have more information, we might be inclined to go that way instead.
Yeah, from what I understand, it's not in the report, but the maximum amount of provincial funding for this grant is 2.8 million. So, yeah. Any other comments or questions? Call the question on the motion to defer. All in favor? Carried. Thank you. 8.3, reconsideration of motion, Fairground Modular Building relocation. Mayor Bertrand requested reconsideration of the motion made at the September 8th, 2020 meeting regarding the Fairground Modular Building relocation. The report from the September 8th, 2020 meeting is attached, and I'll move that council approves staff's recommendation to relocate modular building located at the Fairgrounds to the gate entrance location and to install adequate foundation and proper sealing of the building to protect infrastructure from deterioration, and that council approve the installation of electrical infrastructure and components required for building operations. Second. Councilor Murray. Discussion. Councilor Lee.
I'm fine with the trailers being moved and made weatherproof. I still, before the electrical goes in, because I still have problems with $70,000 for electrical, and that's not going to go away anytime soon, unless somebody can convince me otherwise.
I agree. I did speak with Ms. Thompson here today about that. We did break down the cost estimates, and she felt that the electrical estimate was definitely significant and felt the need to get an electrical assessment done before any of that work is approved. Any other comments, Councilor Overy?
I'm still in favor of both recommendations. One of the main reasons is, we're a landlord over there. We are required to fix, move, or replace. And when it comes to cost evaluations, $70,000 is a lot. Thankfully, Ms. Thompson is going to look at that for us. But this is us setting a limit. Well, anyways, hopefully they can. I'll trust staff and hoping they'll get us a good deal for replacing it over there. When you look at the costs, $70,000 for electrical. We'll still have to put electrical in a new building. We got reports from TR Day Society that a new building is going to cost at least $200,000. So for myself, I feel that we can save a little bit of money here. The building from TR Day Society will suit their needs and will add to our community.
Okay, thank you. Councilor Calvin.
Yeah, so I guess my only concern is, and I know staff has reached out, but we don't even know we can build on that land. So I understand the concept of moving this building, and it's for TR Day Society that Councilor Overy is mentioning. But if it can't be, permanent structure can't be built on that piece of land, the diagrams that are in our things, in our agenda tonight, from TR Day is all permanent. It says right on them, permanent structure. So we're possibly moving something that they're gonna have to change their concepts anyways. So to me, I don't understand why we wouldn't button it up until we hear back from staff. Once they hear back from the government, whether we have a problem with having permanent structures on that lot or not. Because that might have to be re-looked at with TRD stuff. If we're moving something that might, maybe, I know Councilor Kirby had mentioned about the other side that we actually own them. So maybe instead of moving it twice, we should wait and see what staff finds out about this location. Just my personal opinion, not.
Yeah, I agree. There's definitely questions to be answered. But in the report, it does talk about emergency services and access to that area. And in my opinion, I think it makes sense to have a building at the front to act as a security and first aid room. I'm in favor of the recommendation. But to your point, Councilor Kalka, about permanent structures, this building is a temporary structure, so it should be allowed in there. But as far as if there is a contingency of not being able to build permanent structures, TR Days is going to have to adjust. Councillor Majinski and Howe.
Thank you, Mayor Bertrand. I have two questions. First one, maybe we might have to ask staff in regards to it, is the move of and the cost of the $12,000. Will that include new up-to-code stairs as well as wheelchair accessibility? Because the current ones that were there were definitely not up to code and there was no wheelchair accessibility. And then the second question is, with the electrical going to the building, is that just to run the outlets or is that to run the heating and cooling systems as well? Or is it just to run the lights?
I don't know those questions, Ms. Thompson.
From my understanding, and I will have Mr. Beal respond as well, the $20,000 that has been estimated is just for the power to the property line. The The costs for, at 12,000, I am not sure. I will have Mr. Beal respond to that regarding stairs and accessibility. And the electrical, I will also have Mr. Beal respond to that right now.
Thank you, Ms. Thompson, Your Worship, Council. So I'll just talk about the electrical right now, because the original estimate that I had to electrify the building where it sits now was about 57,000, and that would provide electricity for the HVAC systems, which are your heating and cooling systems. But unfortunately, because they are European voltage, we'd have to supply power as per the European voltage requirements. If you were to move the building to the front and connect power to the building and just supply lights and plugs, 120, 240 volts, you're looking at about $9,000. The 57,000 was to supply power up that building as is, with the full functionality of the HVAC systems. The cost for moving, so the $12,000, the estimated $12,000, was for the crane company to come in, move the sections. There's 8 sections there, from where it sits now to the front. The ceiling, and that would be another contractor, and I estimate that about $2,000, which would be part of that 12,000. And those are estimated costs. So all that would have been in the stairs and the handicap access. That wasn't part of my consideration. I would estimate that probably about $2,000 to have a proper handicap ramp and stairs to one access for sure. And then the other cost of $20,000 is a BC Hydro estimate to supply 3-phase transformers to that pole. We would have to wire from the pole to the trailer. So that would be $20,000.
Okay, thank you for that clarification. Councillor Howe?
So we do not even know if we own the land at this point, correct?
We do not own the land.
We do not own the land right now. We
that
lease
land
it.
from the province.
So we still do not know if TR Days Society can put permanent buildings on that site. And I understand the building we're talking about is not permanent, but the other two that they've provided that we need to move our building for, because they need to put this permanent building in immediately, we do not know if we can allow that on that land right now.
Is that correct, Ms. Thompson?
Correct. We have made a call to find out if we can. We were hoping to have that information for tonight, and unfortunately, we don't have it yet.
So back to what Councillor Krakowka's point was, is that why would we move the building further to a different spot on that same piece of land, and then possibly 2 weeks down the road, 3 weeks, a month down the road, we find out from BC Assessment, no, you cannot put a permanent structure on that place. So now Grisfest isn't even going to use that place anymore. They're not building their stage there. And now we need to find them a new piece of land. So then we need to pick up that building again and then move it again. So back to Councillor Krakowka's point is we're putting the cart ahead of the horse here again. Just pump our brakes, don't move the building. We should direct staff to button that building up. The building should have the flaps folded back on the top where the tarps go and everything sectioned off, so that we don't lose it anymore. As for the structural foundation of that building, if we wanted to, we could jack it up and put some blocks under it. But honestly, in the report, it says the majority of the blocks are damaged. We did a site visit on that place today. The majority of those blocks are not damaged. Actually, a minority of the blocks, less than 5% of the blocks had damage on them. It's not gonna go anywhere. It's not gonna break, it's not gonna fall, it's not gonna do anything else. If we're concerned that it is, jack it up, put blocks under where it is if you're concerned. We all seen with our own eyes that this thing is not damaged. Okay? There's no water damage inside the building. We looked at it, and it can be fixed so that we don't have any more possibility of damage over the winter. So why move it and then find out that we don't own the land? That's a ridiculous waste of money for the taxpayers. And then we may have to move it across the road to the piece of land that we own. So we should pump our brakes on this.
Well, I do see your point, but it's also a question for TR Days. Do your plans have to be permanent structures? you know, if we do find out from the province that we aren't allowed to build a permanent structure on that piece of property, why can't temporary structures be used as well? You know, permanent is nice, it's an asset, but it's definitely not end all be all. That I think that we would have to be going out and look for another piece of property because of that decision. I don't think so. They operated with temporary stage for 17 years. Councillor Howard.
Yeah, and so like if we got the information in the beginning from whoever was responsible on staff at that time, be it the CAO, the buildings manager, whoever it was that was responsible, and we found out that we didn't even own that land, we'd be having a completely different conversation because we wouldn't be doing nothing with that land. We would have asked Vestas, pull up the fence, set the fence aside for us, plow this thing back, that we spent days in here talking about what we were going to do with that land because we thought we owned it. We don't even own it. We could have taken all that fencing and moved it across the road to where the old Mamaway camp used to be, and we could have that built up as the structure of a piece of land that we own that already has three-phase power in it that we didn't know that we had to supply to that building, which we don't have to supply three-phase to that building. We don't need to run the HVAC systems that are in there for three-phase for Grisfest. They don't need that type of stuff in there. That stuff can be removed. So to me, I honestly think we're wasting money and wasting our time even discussing this until we can find out what we can actually do with that piece of land. And then we also heard in conversation that there's a septic field or septic line, I think it's changed to now, that goes through the property. I looked at a map or something today. It looks like it's on the one side of the property. Is TR Days aware of that area there? You know, like, there's a lot more questions than there is answers. If you go on the BC Assessment website, it's not even listed. That piece of land is not listed. There are oodles of land around the district of Tumbler Ridge that are listed that we own, but it doesn't list that one as one that we own. You know, another question is the power line in the ground and the location. It appears that some of the power lines have been removed, but not all of them have been. So we go and move this building and put it on top of power lines that are there. Now, do they have to be dug out as well? We looked at them today. There's still power lines in the ground over there. That's a cost as well. So like, it's just, you know, there's not enough answers to these questions at this point.
Ms. Thompson, you were able to find out some more lay of the land of that property. Could you answer a couple of those?
I can answer a few of those. So along the right-hand side of the property, sorry, my directions are a little bit out, so where we're facing the property from the gates on the right-hand side of the property, we do have an 8-inch sewer line that goes through there, and it would be on the inside of the power poles. So that is one of our main sewer lines that is there. There's really no issue as long as we can keep people out. If they're going to be building, they build it inside where we would have to dig in the future if we ever needed to. So it's more of a right-of-way there because our sewer line is underground there. There's also a water line from what I understand. So what is buried there for line is what was dug up at the property line and went to the building, and the power was cut. So what is currently in the ground there is what had serviced the building that was there that was cut by the previous user of the building.
So we left it in the ground and we're not going to remove it.
At this point, correct. Councillor Kirby, then Perkau.
Thank you, Mayor Bertrand. Going back to the very beginning of acquiring that property for Fairgrounds, when TR Days got that building, that was, at that point, all they needed without it being moved. So if we are worried about moving it and those costs, I think at least we should get it back to the state with it being secure. If we have to fix some cinder blocks, make sure the footing is okay, make sure the tarps are back on so it's not leaking, so that they can actually use it for the first few years of the lease till we get this organized. It's fenced and it will still serve a purpose to the group. They can still plan and do their events from where that is sitting right now. As far as it goes with the new proposal or with the NDIT funding for the fairgrounds with the permanent staging and the other kind of plaza, we have the winter to figure this out. But that is supposed to be built and finished off to meet the merits of that grant by the end of July. So, I mean, this is what we have to do. We either just use that, get that ready for them till we figure it out. I think would be the best bet if council's not in favor of moving it to the front. it could be a move that necessarily might not serve a purpose later if we can't actually build permanent, or we look at options of non-permanent till we can figure out how we can maybe acquire that land. But for now, and it's talking with Terry, there was stairs on that building beforehand that were usable. I don't know where they've gone now, but you know, I'd like to see that area left so that they can use it till we get, you know, something in place.
Councillor Kirkcalka.
Yeah, so I totally agree with Councilor Kirby in regards to leaving it there, buttoning it up, doing whatever we can do there to make sure it's usable by this organization. The concern I have, and Mayor Bertrand, you mentioned, well, they could just change their plans. Well, they submitted those plans, those drawings, to NDIT for approval. I don't know if they can just wing the change without going back through NDIT to go from permanent to non-permanent. So my concern is if staff hears that we are not allowed to build permanent structures on this leased land, and we take the money and spend the money and move these trailers up front, do all the powering and everything else, then find that out from TRDAs and through the government they can't do it and they can't change their plans because that's, so they'd have to re-enter into another grant where maybe a possibility of moving over to the land that we actually own, where there's already power. And that means we don't have to move the trailers once. So that's my only concern about trying to move them immediately until we hear back whether they can build permanent structures, which that's how they applied for their grant.
Councillor Howard.
Thank you, Mayor Bertrand. Maybe I'm confused because I was pretty certain that TRD Society said that they needed that building moved. It was a part, like part of their plan was to have it moved. It sounds like maybe that it can stay there, but I was under the opinion when they came in like it needed to be moved for their plans.
Yeah, as far as I understand, the concept that is part of this report is showing the stage in the back left corner. And that would be, if the building stays what it's at, they would have to move that stage over to more of the center area of the yard. But it's really up to us what we do with the building, so they can't really make plans on which they so if the building does move up to the front, then the concept that's in the report now, the stage in the back corner. Councillor Howard.
No, thank you. So, you know, with that, if the only concern here is that we don't know if we can build or move on that land, well, let's just make an amendment contingent on our ability to build, right? Because if we do get the information that we can, then that's fine. Then it's all moot. But if we do get the go ahead that this can be done, well, we're going to be discussing this again, right? Then, you know, we have the information we need today. Why do we put it off till another meeting and we can just, you know, discuss this again for a fourth time, right? Like, I think this discussion should be on everything is good and we should go ahead. Yeah.
Well, we are missing key information, and with that information, if it comes back to we cannot build permanent structures, then I think the decision of that property really comes into question too. Councillor Howard.
And you know, we can also give our new CAO an opportunity to update this, have a better look at the electrical costs. You know, Mr. Beals just said that I think $9,000 is a far cry from $57,000. $9,000 for us to provide power to that building so they have plugs and lights. That's what we agreed to in the lease. We did not agree to three-phase power. We did not agree that we're going to heat their building. We did not agree that we're going to worry about all those types of things. And it says so even in the lease that we're not doing that. So, you know, we need to give our CAO a bit of time to read this over. I think this is almost something that we should look at deferring until we have more information.
Yeah, I agree. And that is new information that it was $57,000 to install where it is at the moment and only $9,000 to install up in the front. That's a big difference for sure. Councillor.
Yeah, I was just going to mention that actually is the cost difference between where the building is now and the front. So we can maybe have that in the, or even, I don't know if that 57,000 was with a three-phase at the back, or if we had, maybe it's 12,000 to have power there, just basic power at the back where it is now. I don't know.
Yeah, I believe it was three-phase with that $57,000 quote. Ms. Thompson?
It was for, to have the HVAC and everything running, right? That's to power the building as is. But if we just want lights and power, then that's the reduced cost, which is a lot less.
Yeah, and honestly, I'm okay with deferring this. There is some critical information we're missing here. But my question is we're not applying or not complying with the lease at the moment, because in the lease we're saying that we need to have an electrical service to that building for them. So, you know, if we decide to button it up for the winter, do we not still need to provide electrical service to it where it is standing? Ms. Thompson?
I honestly have not seen the lease yet, but if it does say we have that we will supply electrical, then we should be.
Councilor Kirby?
Thank you, Mayor Bertrand. As the recommendation reads right now, I am in favor of that recommendation, but at the least, we should have it so that they can use it still for storage, et cetera, and that it should be put back to the way it was if we are not moving it. And I'm not sure when we defer it, but defer it till the snow flies, or what's the...
I think the deferral is really to find out a response from the province. I'm anticipating an application process for any of these kinds of applications for Crown land like that. So I don't think it's going to be easy, but I really don't know which direction I would go. Councilor Kirby?
Just with you saying that, Mayor Bertrand, that, you know, waiting for a response from the province, I don't think that will be timely. And I think that I would sooner see this go through as it is right now and move it then.
Councilor Majinski?
Yeah, that actually raises a big concern, because if TRDs is applying for grants for this land to build permanent structures, whether they're permanent or if they're on pilings or whatever, wouldn't we have to submit those to the province and get an approval from the province for us to okay it? So that's going to be a real big delay, especially if we can't even get a simple answer if we're allowed to even build a permanent or not. You know, so this might take weeks, months, and so we need to have answers fairly soon so that we can authorize these to go ahead with TRDs.
Yeah. Councilor Norbury?
You know, that is a bit of my concern by deferring it. You know, time is of the essence to a point, right? We have a potential large investment out there, and this does throw a wrench into these plans. Right? If we want to see something happening out there, you know, like the next phase for TRDs is looking at next year. We're looking at doing something next year. And I think if we want to see things happening, time is of the essence. And yeah, I think it could be all contingent on, you know, approval from the government.
Any other comments? Councilor Howe?
So if we vote in favor of this, what's on the floor right now, we are going to move that building to the front of the structure, the front of the area. We're going to button it all up for the winter. We're going to provide power to it. And then we're going to hope that we're allowed to build permanent structures on that so TRD Society can continue with their NDIT grant. We talk about timelines and stuff. If we don't own it and we can't build anything on it, that NDIT grant is out the window. They ain't getting nothing built on it. So why we would go and jump ahead and move this thing and spend, who knows what it's going to be? It's somewhere between $25,000 and $90,000 to move this building now, because we don't know, because we're in a rush and a hurry. It's not my fault. That's not my problem. I don't care that we're in a rush or a hurry and TRD Society can't do it next year or whatever, because that's a waste of taxpayers' money. Hold off on it. And maybe we get the information back. Maybe we don't. If we don't, I'd rather not waste taxpayers' money than move it twice.
Councilor Norbury, then Majinski.
Thank you, Mayor Bertrand. I think if you ask the taxpayer if they would get value for their money on this change, I think and you tell them what's planned out there, what TRDs does for us, I think they would absolutely agree that this is a worthwhile spend of their money. I mean, if you look at what TRDs does for the community, just the yard hunting alone, just the art of hunt alone, anybody would say that this is worthwhile moving forward to have this event being provided. And I understand that this building is critical for them to offer this service in the future. So I don't think it's fair to say that it's not a value for our taxpayers. I mean, our taxpayers do want to see value. They don't want to see it wasted. I don't think it's a waste at this point in time. And as it stands, I'm not going to repeat what I said, so I'll leave it there.
Thank you. Councilor Majinski.
In our lease agreement, we said that we're gonna have a building functioning with power. That's all we have to do right now. Whether they get the pergola, the stage built, and they have to adjust those costs without a concrete pad, they do them on pilings, change it, that's fine, that's up to them, because all we had, they could use that for whatever else. They could put in a paintball field, they can do toboggan hills or whatever, put in a water park, they do whatever they want. That was up to them to do, and doesn't have to be permanent. But all we had to do is have a building for them with power, and that's all we have to do right now. And if we do that, move it, get it buttoned up, have power to it, done for this year, that's all we have to do to fulfill our obligation. If they have to change what they have to do, what they got their money for, through NDIT and whoever else, they can adjust that and they can go back to those funders and say, hey, we found some hiccups, we can't actually build permanent, solid, standing buildings. We would like to do a temporary stage, adjust the costs, and adjust from there and see what, and if the funders say, no, we don't want to, they can back up, well, then they can reapply through somebody else. It's a process. Like, not all grants are guaranteed, and if they don't work out, you have to keep on going. That's the difficulty of being a nonprofit and looking for money, and it's a tough go. But as long as we do our part and to help them, I think this is the best bet for us right now, is to get them something that we provided and said we need to do it right away.
Councilor Mowbray, then Kukalka.
Thank you, Mayor Bertrand. I think with any sort of decision that we make, especially when it involves money, and there's always going to be some uncertainties when making decisions. Now, in this case, I believe that everything will be fine. I think we'll get back from the government that it put permanent buildings out there. You can put the semi-permanent building of this building, and we gotta go forward with the expectation that things will work out. If we're always prevent ourselves from making a decision because this could go wrong or that could go wrong, we won't make any decisions, or we won't do anything. So I think we should just.
Thank you. Councilor Kukalka.
Yeah, so my concern is, I get that we've talked about some different pricing or costs with staff right now. My thing is, I based my decision on approximately $90,000, with not knowing if TRDs can actually do anything with permanent structure at this point. I'm not in favor of moving the building until we know that from the government back to staff. To me, we're putting the cart before the horse by moving this building all the way over to the gate to find out that it's not, they can't do anything with it, but yet we have a piece of property across the road that we can. And now we're gonna pick the trailer up. Trailer probably won't cost us 90 grand because there's already 3-phase power over it. But now we're gonna pick it up and move it again. And to me, I say you button it up. I mean, if you have to run power to it as is, if you're just gonna run lights, plugins, I mean, I did it in my own backyard in my shed. So, I mean, if that's what we're worried about, is making sure they have power, let's get a gen set for now. If that's what we're worried about, is making sure that building has power for them to use. Until we hear back, whether it's a week from now or a month from now from the government. I mean, maybe it's time to put some pressure on the government saying they're holding this up too. I don't think it was realized. I mean, I'm sorry, this was brought up to staff probably 3 weeks ago. 2.5, 3 weeks ago. Once I realized that it was a government land and it was actually a leased lot. And we made the call today. So, I'm sorry, I can't support moving it for, I mean, I'm gonna use the numbers that are in my package of 90 grand. For a hope the government's gonna come back and allow them to build on it. Yes, they maybe I'll go back to NDIT and they'll say, no, you definitely can go to temp stage or whatever, so it doesn't have to be a permit. That might happen too. But until we know, why would we want to spend that money? Because we might have to move the trailers further than we have to today. That's my thing.
Okay, thank you. Councilor Majinski.
So we have a cost of $12,000 to move it and $9,000 to put power to it. That's all it's gonna cost us to move it and have it ready for them. So why don't we just do that? We've given TR Day Society how much over the years to host an event in a soccer field. This is something that they're gonna use for other events as well, not just one festival for a weekend. I think this is money well spent.
Thank you. Councilor Lehman?
Thank you, Mayor. I think when Terry was here, she was okay with it being there because there's nothing gonna happen this winter anyway. So if we close it up, they can use it for search. They already have stuff in there. So if we're gonna move it, they're gonna have to move all that stuff out. So I don't know what the big deal is, but button it up, figure out what the heck is going on, and then start moving things. But we gotta be a little bit better organized because this, like, it just seems we're batting this around for forever, and we're not gonna get anywhere because everybody has a different opinion. I don't wanna do this, I wanna do that. And don't think you can guess what the taxpayers are gonna say either, because that's not, unless you do a referendum, you're not gonna know. And that's just pure speculation. I think leave it where it is, figure out what the hell's going on, and then go from there.
Thank you. Councilor Kirby?
Thank you, Mayor Bertrand. Everything that has happened to date is not the fault of the TR Day Society. They were happy where the building was gonna be when we got that land. Then it was going to be moved by staff and staff. Okay, that's great. It's actually better there. But now they've already spent money that they've gotten from their grant from NDIT. They've already started putting in fencing. They've already improved the fence by having to add in a gate so that the staff can have access to this. They did not know that we did not have the land. So guess what? They are left holding the bag. I say, move it to the front, get the power, just the power that they need to run the building, and then they can carry on with any event that they were gonna plan without a permanent stage and without the plaza. They might have to redo their grant, we might have to go and cry to NDIT, the board might have to go, this is sorry, this is a big mistake, mistakes happen. But if we do move that building and we do put power to it, they will be able to put on events next year, and other groups will be able to put on events next year, just exactly the way it was at the beginning.
Thank you. Councilor Kalka?
Yeah, so if Councilor Majinski could just fill me in on the numbers, because I'm looking at an agenda report. It says BC Hydro, $20,000. Is that gone now? We don't need power from the pole? Or do we still need power from the pole?
Still need power.
So there's $20,000 for that. There's $12,000 to move it. And I believe you're talking about the $9,000 that maybe was quoted, and no offense to staff, but while he's sitting here with not knowing for sure. And that's just to run lights and plugs is what I believe Mr. Beal said, and I don't want to throw that out there, but, so that works out to be $41,000, not 12 and 9. So just one clarification, because you keep saying 9 and 12. But there's actually a BC Hydro supply, and I think we're forgetting that now. And that's $20,000. If they can't, and I mean, TR Days is great, I mean, I support it, but in the same aspect, if all of a sudden we realize they can't build permanent, they go back and do to the grants, they won't do it, but yet we can go, there's already 3-phase power there, we saved the $20,000.
Exactly.
So that's my only concern, is you keep saying 9 and 12, it's actually, you're forgetting that $20,000 for BC Hydro.
Okay. I'm going to call the question on the recommendation. This is going to tell us if we're moving it or not. All in favor? Opposed? Carried. Thank you. 8.4, Strategic Planning Workshop. Report dated August 17th, 2020 from the Director of Corporate Services requesting council consideration of a facilitated strategic planning session, and the council selects a facilitator from the following list. A. B.D. Carruthers and Associates, B.C.B. Strategic Leadership Solutions, or C. Dr. Gordon A. Mack. Recommendation, please, Councilor McCullough.
Council considers a facilitated strategic planning session, and the council selects a facilitator from the following list. C. Gordon A. McIntosh.
seconded. Councillor Majinski, discussion. Councillor Norbury.
Thank you, Mayor Bertrand. And my only question is to Councillor Kalka, and I guess to anybody, is this the individual who did the strategic planning session for the PRD?
No, it was BD Carruthers. Councillor Kalka.
Yeah, and the reason I picked Gordon McIntosh, I've done a couple seminars with him. One was in Dawes Creek, and I thought he did really well. Was it strategic planning? No, but there was some discussion about that. I did talk with Mayor Bertrand. You know, he talked about the gentleman that did the PRD, but he also talked about the pricing that he was quoted here. And like, wow, I'm not sure everybody thinks about McIntosh. I've done some book reading on his, and I think he's pretty good.
Yeah.
From what I see him, I guess that's why I threw his name up.
Yeah. Councillor Kirby.
Thank you, Mayor Bertrand. I checked up on some of Mr. McIntosh's references. I talked to the CAO in both Whitehorse and Grand Prairie, and both were very happy and really said that he brought something to the table. If he wanted to pinpoint a certain subject, they really like the service review and strategic planning, and have been using him for years. So this also has my vote.
Excellent. Any other comments? Call the question, all in favor? Opposed? Carried, thank you. On that, I would like to get this done as soon as possible. I'm thinking the end of this month or beginning of next month. See if earliest available dates for Mr. McIntosh. Does anyone have any issues with the end of this month or beginning of next month? Not yet. Okay. Okay, thank you. Notice of motions. Councillor Kalka.
Yeah, then we asked for a staff report in regards to the Baylor at the recycling facility not being CSA approved. And then find out what the route will be to have it CSA approved and the financial impact.
Thank you. Any other notice of motions? Councillor Business. Councillor Norbury.
Thank you, Mayor Bertrand. There's one thing that I wanted to bring up that it wasn't really applicable to a report, and it's some news that I got about the changes with food bank donations. From what I understand is that food banks are unable to receive donations from the public. They can't receive just general dry goods. And with that, that throws a major wrench in the plans of the Christmas Food Hamper program, the food bank, as well as the Mayor's Food Drive that we put on every year. I know many of us participate in that, and that is a huge factor in providing Christmas hampers and food to people, families at risk in our community. And without that, the food bank is going to be not going to be able to meet the needs of our community this year. I think we should have a discussion on if this council wants to and how they can support the food bank in the future proceedings. So I'd like to see it on a PNP.
Are these COVID-related restrictions?
Yeah, and if we're gonna discuss, I need to excuse myself. I wasn't sure where you're going with this.
Oh.
I mean, I'm not saying that, I do have a local business that like to supply food, so if there's any kind of, I'm not guaranteeing that council goes or doesn't, but you have a discussion.
Yeah, no, Councillor Norbury, if you want to discuss about adding to another upcoming agenda, discuss it. Thank you. Any other councillors' business? Councillor Perkauer.
So I don't have any myself, but I'd like to ask you a direct question. I've actually been talking to you before, and I just forgot what to tell the council. PRRD meeting. I tried to watch it online, and you guys are getting into some good topic, and then my battery died. But Dale Bumstaff was talking in regards to recycling and your guys' 5-year outlook, and the concern was there. And if you could just fill us in, maybe because I missed some of it, it'd be great to overhear you, because the concern was when this contract's up, there could be a concern there for the PRRD. And then I heard him talk about, geez, we might have to warehouses and buildings, and when the buildings are full, then what do you guys do with it? Can you fill council in, because that's a big concern when you look at other municipalities that are talking about the same thing down south.
As far as storing recyclables, is that what you're talking about?
Mhm.
Yeah, so PRD is currently under a solid waste management update plan and strategy. And what we're finding is we're so far away from the recycling market that it's very costly to get our products to market. And a lot of the products that we are recycling, or some of the products that we are recycling, it's too cost prohibitive to ship it. For example, styrofoam takes up a lot of space, but very little weight. So they are storing them currently at the moment, I believe, at some PRD facilities until it is not cost prohibitive to ship it. But in this strategy, there's a PRD is looking for many different options to address our solid waste concerns. The easy option to address our solid waste concerns is landfill. Landfill's cheap, and we have lots of land. But recycling, we're really trying to push the province to open up markets for us, whether that be across the border into Grand Prairie or support us on a waste energy project as well. So there is definitely a lot of talk going on and a lot of different options and strategies being talked about. And I'm looking forward to the new solid waste management plan strategy coming out before the end of the year, should be. Councilor Bertrand.
So just on that, like we're just, I'm not even sure if staff is finalized in regards to our recycling contracts and stuff. Do we have a concern with just starting that process off in Tumble Ridge? Like in regards to that, I guess I didn't get to watch all of it, so I'm kind of in the park and stuff like that. But do we have a concern with that just coming on board? Like Tumble Ridge should be on board sometime this month, is my understanding. When I hear we're starting to store stuff in facilities, I know Dale Bumstead mentioned about once it's full, what do we do with it? So do we have a concern in regards to rates in Tumble Ridge with going on board with
In regards to what, sorry?
for our recycles? Because we're using PRRD, so these glasses are.
Yeah.
We're using them. So I don't believe we have a signed contract yet in regards to what we're being paid for our stuff at all. So are we gonna have a concern just coming on board now with Dale? I mean, to me, he raised that concern when you guys are going through your 5-year. So do we see a concern coming back to the district of Tumble Ridge with just coming on board?
The concern that I have is we're such a distance away from the market that we need to open up a new market to make it so that we don't have to pay so much a ton to recycle. The whole point of recycling is to divert the waste from the landfill to extend the life of our landfills. But if we are losing money and we're paying money, it is a concern all over the region. It's not just for Tumble Ridge. So my argument, not an argument, but a suggestion is we've gone and installed a new baler here in Tumble Ridge. I really think the district and the regional district need to work very collaboratively to ensure that we use that baler very effectively within the region, not just for Tumble Ridge. That baler opens up a new market for mixed waste. And for us in Tumble Ridge to have to ship to Fort St. John and then they ship south, that's doubling the cost, and it's really adding to the cost of the recycling overall. So it is very much a concern. It's top of mind for regional district, not just the recycling program, but also the entire solid waste strategy. So it's the biggest budget in regional district, and it needs some changes, and it also needs some provincial support as well. We've identified some holes in the Recycle BC program, and more flexibility in the Peace region, and more support as far as new markets. The regional district has had conversation across the border with County Grand Prairie, and there's opportunity to collaborate there. And they're saying for waste to energy, we have researched that for 65,000 people in the Peace River Regional District, we don't create enough waste to make it to be able to feed a waste energy plant. So whether or not it's waste to heat is another option, or there's a new, brand new, not even a prototype out there of a new incinerator there's definitely options that are being looked at and just explored through the regional district, but it's a very big concern to not just the district, the entire region. And I think the biggest problem is our distance to the market. Councilor Lehman.
Thank you, Mayor. I'm just wondering, so take styrofoam, take cardboard, take plastic bottles, or whatever you want, recycle. So when it goes to a recycling facility, whatever they do with it, why couldn't you have something like that closer to where we are so that you can process this recyclable stuff instead of shipping it down to Vancouver at an exorbitant cost? Wouldn't it be feasible to build something up here?
Yeah, absolutely. And, yeah, it would be, but, you know, in my opinion, another reason the recycling program or Recycle BC doesn't work is I don't believe there's enough recyclable products to warrant somebody processing that material too. So. Any other councilor's business? Councilor Hall.
Just, again, with that recycling, so we've laid out all the infrastructure, over $1 million for us to get our bins and our boiler and and the building.
It was $500,000.
$500,000 for what?
The building.
How much was the bailiff?
That was before.
Yeah, but part of the infrastructure and the bins and then part of the recycling truck and whatever. Ton of money. I pegged it at about $1 million. I thought was where we were at, but we don't have a contract in place yet.
Oh, yeah.
We do. We know what we're going to get for our product.
Through the regional district, we have solid base contract.
Okay. We know what we're going to get for our product.
I don't specifically know that.
Okay.
Regional district has a contract with a recycling collection facility in Fort St. John. And that's, I believe, the contract that you're speaking of. Any other councilor's business? Councilor Kirby.
Thank you, Mayor Bertrand. I didn't get a chance to get a formal report in, but I attended both FCM and UBCM virtually this year. Have to say, I thought it was done really well. Resolutions were quick. One resolution that was sent in was kind of had to deal with how we were dealing with our boards having to do criminal record checks. It will now, the recommendation has gone forward that anybody running for local governments will have to also have a criminal record check as well. Did the mayor's, did the business walks? I thought that was positive. Got some good feedback. It was good to see Community Futures out, and I think a report will be coming to council on that. All our groups are up and running. TRMBA, the Geopark, all are doing well. New boards, AGMs are coming up. Strategic framework is looking good for the museum. TAC is on track. Just, with COVID going on, our volunteer workforce is working hard out there. So hats off to all the groups for keeping it going.
I agree. Thank you. I had a few meetings last couple weeks. I also attended business walks. It was very good. UBCM meetings and conference calls. We had a meeting with Flynn Road to discuss wildlife management, fossil protection, and grizzlies and BC wreck sites. Ministry of Health, thank you for the APP payment program and questions around transportation. And Ministry of Transportation, we spoke to them about Highway 52 North and East, as well as the Gulf Card Pilot program. Had a phone call with Oil and Gas Commission, OGC, and I requested regular updates on the Orphan Well project. And they did mention they have a new website, www.bcogc.ca, and they did provide as well a 24-hour complaint line if anyone in the public sees anything out of the ordinary or wants to complain. It's 250-794-5200. As well, I had a follow-up phone call with Flynn Road in regards to our grizzly concerns, And they did mention that they are revising the inventory model. And I requested the district be engaged on the new strategy being developed. And they did commit to reaching out to us and following up after the election. As during the election time, nothing can be done. And I did have a good meeting with the Resource Municipalities Coalition as well. That's it. Any other council business? Councilor Kirby?
Oh, sorry, just one more thing. I'd like to congratulate Jen, our new CAO, Jennifer, for making it through the first meeting, and we might have more viewers from Saskatchewan tonight besides my own family, maybe some of Jennifer's too.
That's right, yeah. Welcome, Ms. Thompson. Councilor Hall?
I just have a question about 8.3 for clarity. In the second part of the recommendation, it says, and that council will approve the installation and electrical infrastructure and components required for the building operations. So that has passed and gone ahead. What is the budget for that set at now? Are we at $90,000 still for this entire project?
Ms. Thompson, can you clarify that, please?
Council did speak about just lights and power, sorry, lights and plugs, sorry, and that would be around $9,000. So that is where we would be at. That was what the discussion centered around.
Okay.
Thank you. Okay, question and answer period. Ms. Thompson, did you receive any questions by email?
None.
Resolution to close. 12.1, resolution to close meeting, that the meeting be closed to the public in accordance with the community charter, sections 1A, J, and K. A is personal information about an identifiable individual who holds or is being considered for a position as an officer, employee, or agent of the municipality or another position appointed by the municipality. J is information that is prohibited or information that if it were presented in a document would be prohibited from disclosure under section 21 of the Freedom of Information and Protection of Privacy Act. And K is negotiations and related discussions respecting the proposed provision of a municipal service that are at their preliminary states and that, in the view of council, could reasonably be expected to harm the interests of the municipality if they were held in public. Second. Councilor Norby. All in favor? Opposed? Carried. Thank you. 10-minute recess, please.
Great, thank you, council.
Thank you, Scott. Thank you. Oh, yeah. Don't lick your back, your bank card when you go to swipe.
Yeah.
Yeah. They all, we all, it's just, so first and one.
Did you get paper? Because I forgot to
Unless you have the space for it.
Yeah, get on the space, that's why I say that my,
Right.
like that's what those people. Yeah, definitely could have been. They found my cousin dead young. No, they don't know yet, I haven't heard yet. Yeah, what's today? Monday, Friday.
We're ready.
Okay, perfect. Back into open here for Horizon Report. The District of Tupelo Ridge has entered into a service agreement with DGS to correct pavement deficiencies from 2017 to 2018 at no cost to the district's taxpayers in a multi-year remediation program. As the discussions between the district and DGS were to resolve a dispute and required legal advice, discussions and service agreement were considered by the district at meetings that were closed to the public. The district regrets not having advised the public earlier. All right, and recommendation for adjournment, please. Councilor Kukalka, seconder, Councilor Lehman, all in favor? Opposed? Carried. Thank you. Got his thing back.